Never Stop Learning, week 270. We're going to take a quick look at the Dodge, Burn, and Sponge tool stack in Adobe Photoshop CC 2015. All right, so in the previous weeks, I've gone over these tools individually, showing you the different functions and options available to you. But in this video, I want to show you how to work with them together, like a little workflow. And I also want to show you how to change Photoshop so it can help you when you're working with these tool stacks. All right, so the first thing I want to do is hit the O key on my keyboard. That's going to activate the Dodge tool. Over here in the Tools panel, if I click and hold, you're going to notice that we also have the Burn tool and the Sponge tool in the same stack, and they all have the O key as a hotkey to activate it. All right, so I'm going to leave it set to the Dodge tool. Now on my keyboard, if I hit the O key, notice nothing happens. No matter how many times I press O, nothing happens because I already have that stack activated. On my machine, what I have to do is hold down the Shift key, and while I have the Shift key pressed, I have to hit the O key. All right, every time I hit O, I'm able to cycle through the different tools in that stack. All right, now I want to change Photoshop to work a little bit differently. All right, to do that, you got to go into the Preferences. Quick way to do that is hold down the Command key and then hit K. All right, the keyboard shortcut on a PC is going to be Control K. All right, over here in the column on the left, choose Tools. And that's going to give us these options over here. All right, the one I'm focused in on is this one here, use Shift key for tool switch. All right, I'm going to turn this feature off and then click OK. By turning that feature off, I no longer have to press the Shift key when I want to switch to the different tools in my stack. Let me show you what I mean. All right, I got the Dodge tool activated. Now I'm going to hit the O key, and I have the Burn tool activated. I'm going to hit the O key again. That's going to give me the Sponge tool, which is exactly what I need because I'm looking at this image and I don't like that my background is fighting for position with my foreground here. All right, so I want to desaturate the background. Notice over here at the top, the mode is already set to desaturate. That's great. The flow is set to 50. I want to increase that so I could get rid of a lot of color really quick. So I'm going to set this to 80 by just hitting the 8 key on my keyboard. And I want to turn this feature off for a bit. This one is going to minimize the clipping for fully saturated or desaturated colors. All right, I'm going to turn that off because I don't want to protect any of the colors in the background. All right, now I want to increase my brush size. You could use the left bracket or the right bracket to change the size of your brush, but I like to hold down Control, Option, regular click on a Mac because it's going to give me some visual feedback, letting me know exactly how I'm going to be spraying with this tool. Now, if you're using a PC, it's going to be Control, Alt, and a right click. All right, cool. So something about this size looks pretty good to me. And now I'm just going to start painting in here. So click and drag to start desaturating this area. And I like this because I have like a little bit of a fall off because we're using a brush. All right, so click and drag again to add some more desaturating. Basically, we're just removing color in the background. This looks good. All right, that's enough. Now it's a subtle change, but it's exactly what I need. All right, now let's make some changes to this tool. This time I want to start to saturate. So let's change the mode by holding down Shift and the plus key. All right, there we go. Now we got the mode set to saturate. The flow, I'm going to back off on that to, let's say, 40%. And I want to turn this feature back on over here. It's going to minimize the clipping for fully saturated colors because I'm going to bring some color back in here to my buddy Max. All right, let's zoom in on this guy. And I really don't need a brush this big, so Control, Option, click and drag to the left. That looks good. Now I really want to focus in on Max's tongue. All right, there we go. Subtle changes going on here. And we have some sun on his back, so I really want to show that off. And we could bring some color over here on the grass a little bit. I'm bringing some over here in his chest. He doesn't really have too much color there, so I'm not really worried about that. There you go. I was really focusing on his tongue. I like this area here. And let's just add a little bit of color back here as a fall off. All right, so you can continue to play around with this to get the exact look you're going for. But to me, this looks pretty good right now for this demo. All right, now I'm going to hit the O key on my keyboard, and that's going to give me the Dodge tool, which is the next one in the stack. All right, the range is set to midtones, which is pretty good. Exposure is set to 50%. I'm actually going to back off on that to 40%. And I always leave this one turned on for the Dodge tool. It's going to minimize the clipping for the shadows and highlights, which is great. All right, cool. So I'm going to increase my brush size right over here like we did earlier. I'm going to bring in a little bit of highlight here and on this chest. That looks good. All right, cool. I don't want to go too crazy because the sun was on him. He is a white furred puppy, so I can run into a situation where I'm clipping those highlights. So just doing real subtle changes right in here. That looks good. All right, great. Now I'm going to hit the O key again to switch tools. Now we're using the burn tool. All right, the range is set to midtones, which might be okay, but what I really want to do is focus in on the shadows. So I'm going to hold down the shift key and hit the minus key. That's going to cycle back to shadows. If I hit the plus key, it'll go in the opposite direction, and now we're back to midtones. All right, I'm going to leave it set to shadows. The exposure at 50% might work out okay for me. I'm going to see once I start painting in here a little bit. And I want to keep this feature turned on, which is again going to minimize the clipping for me. All right, let's increase this brush size right over here. All right, cool. The main thing I want to play with this burn tool is on his nose. There you go. One little click there. That was a little bit harsh, so let me Command Z to undo that. The exposure, I'm going to back off on that, set it to 30 by just hitting the 3 key on my keyboard. I'm going to click once on his nose, and I like that better. I'm going to click once on his eyes right here. I like that. Maybe darken this one up a little bit more. That looks good. And now I just want to add it to a couple little areas over here to add some contrast. Okay, now I'm currently doing this to the midtones, so let's switch the range. I'm currently doing this to the shadows. So let's change the range, Shift plus, and now we're back to the midtones. Sorry about that. First we were doing shadows, now we're doing midtones. All right, there we go. This looks pretty good there. And again, notice I'm not doing any clicks and drags because I just want to subtly bring that in. All right, so now that I've gone through the entire stack, let's come over here to the layers panel. I'm going to turn off the layer that I was working on to show you the before. Now I'm going to turn it back on so you can see the after. So there you have it, folks. That's a quick look at how to use the Dodge, Burn, and Sponge tool stack in Adobe Photoshop CC 2015.